The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a city that had forgotten the ground. They called it Orbital Nexus 12. It was old and tired and full of beings from 100 different worlds. Ships came and went at all hours. Merchants sold strange goods in crowded markets. And somewhere in the lower levels, where the lights flickered and the air smelled of engine grease and old food, a man named Jack Harmon walked alone. Jack was 53 years old. His hair had gone gray at the temples and his knees hurt when the weather changed, though there was no weather in space. He had served 22 years in the United Earth Defense Corps. He had fought in 3 wars on planets, whose names most people could not pronounce. He had watched good men die and bad men live, and he had stopped trying to understand why. When his service ended, they gave him a medal and a pension and a handshake from a general who did not remember his name. Now he traveled. He did not know where he was going. He did not know what he was looking for. Maybe peace? Maybe purpose. Maybe just a place where the nightmares would stop. He had been on this station for 2 days. It was not a friendly place for humans. Earth was still new to the galactic community. Humans had only discovered faster than light travel 60 years ago. To the older species, they were children playing in a garden they did not understand. Jack did not mind. He had never cared much what others thought of him. He walked through the crowded corridors and watched the aliens go about their business. The Cathari were easy to spot. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, and their bodies were made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. They moved slowly and spoke in voices like wind chimes. Jack had fought beside them once, during the siege of Meridian 4. They were good soldiers. Cold but reliable, the Vrelian were everywhere. They were insect-like creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in every direction at once. They were merchants and traders, and they would sell anything to anyone if the price was right. Jack did not trust them, but he did business with them. Everyone did. And then there were the Drakoneth. Had heard of them, but never seen one until he came to this station. They were large, nearly as tall as the Cathari, but broader and heavier. Their bodies were covered in scales that should have shone like polished copper, but instead looked dull and worn. They had long tails and clawed hands and faces that reminded Jack of the dragons from old Earth stories. Smoke curled from their nostrils when they breathed. They moved differently from the other aliens. They kept their heads down. They did not meet anyone's eyes. They walked close to the walls as if they were trying to become invisible. Jack had asked a bartender about them on his first night. The bartender was a Vrelian who clicked his mandibles when he spoke. "The Drakoneth," he had said. "Bad luck? Bad business. Their world died 10 years ago. A plague killed billions. Now they wander. No one wants them. They bring disease, they say. They bring misfortune. Do they?" Jack had asked. The bartender shrugged, which was strange to see with 4 arms. "Who knows? But no one wants to find out. They are refugees without a home. Ghosts of a dead empire." Jack had thought about that conversation as he walked through the station. He saw the Drakoneth in the shadows, in the corners, in the places where no one looked. He saw mothers holding children close. He saw old ones sitting alone with empty eyes. He saw young ones begging for work and being turned away. He had seen refugees before. After the war on Kepler 442b, there had been millions of displaced humans. He remembered the camps. He remembered the hunger. He remembered the look in people's eyes when hope began to die. These dragons had that same look. Jack found a small food court near the lower docks. It was cheap and dirty, and the food was not good, but it was what he could afford on his pension. He ordered black coffee and a meat pie and sat at a table in the corner where he could watch the room. The coffee was bitter. The pie was mostly grease. But it was hot, and it filled his stomach, and that was enough. He watched the crowd as he ate. Workers from the cargo bays came in for quick meals. Travelers waited for connecting ships. A group of Cathari sat in silence, their crystal bodies humming softly. 2 Vrelian merchants argued about prices in their clicking language. And in the far corner, pressed against the wall like she was trying to disappear, sat a Drakoneth female. She was thin. far too thin. Jack could see the shape of her bones beneath her scales. Her copper coloring had faded to something closer to rust. She sat very still, her yellow eyes watching the room with the careful attention of someone who had learned that danger could come from anywhere. A small shape moved beside her. A child, a little Draconith girl, no bigger than a human toddler. She had the same dull scales as her mother, the same thin limbs. But her eyes were different. They were wide and curious and not yet dead. Jack watched them for a long time. The mother never ordered food. She never approached the counter. She just sat and watched and held her daughter close. Sometimes the little one would point at something and the mother would lean down and whisper in her ear. The child would nod and settle back against her mother's side. They were hungry. Jack could see it in the way they looked at the food that passed by on other people's trays. He could see it in the way the child's eyes followed a meat pie, like it was the most beautiful thing in the universe, but they did not beg. They did not ask. They just sat and waited and hoped that someone might notice them. No one did. Jack finished his pie. He drank his coffee. He told himself that it was not his problem. He was just a retired soldier on a fixed income. He could not save everyone. He could not even save himself most days, but he did not leave. He sat and watched and waited, and he did not know why. Something in his chest felt heavy. Something in his mind would not let him look away. The mother and child sat in their corner. The station hummed and buzzed around them, and Jack Harmon, who had seen more death than any man should, found himself thinking about what it meant to be truly alone in a universe that did not care. He ordered another coffee. It was going to be a long night. Jack came back to the food court the next morning. He told himself it was because the coffee was cheap. He told himself it was because he had nowhere else to be. But when he walked through the door, his eyes went straight to the corner where the dragon mother and her child had been sitting. They were still there. They had not moved. They had not eaten. The mother looked even thinner than before, if that was possible. The child was asleep against her side, her small body curled up tight like she was trying to make herself as small as she could. Jack ordered his coffee and his pie. He sat at the same table as before. He watched. The morning crowd was different from the night crowd. More workers. More merchants setting up their stalls. The food court filled with the smell of cooking meat and baking bread. Jack saw the little dragon girl wake up. Her nose twitched. Her eyes opened. She looked at the food stalls with such desperate longing that Jack felt something twist in his chest. The mother noticed. She leaned down and whispered something. The child nodded and looked away, but Jack could see her small hands shaking. An hour passed. Then, too, the crowd grew thicker. The dragon mother watched the bakery stall across from her corner. It was run by a Vrelian with dark green chitin and 4 arms that moved constantly as he served customers. He sold pies and pastries and fresh bread that steamed in the cold station air. Jack saw the moment when the mother made her decision. She stood up slowly, carefully. She took her daughter's hand. She walked toward the bakery stall with her head down and her shoulders hunched. The crowd parted around her like she was diseased. Some aliens turned away. Others made sounds of disgust. The little girl pressed close to her mother's leg. They reached the counter. The Vrelian merchant looked at them with compound eyes that showed no warmth. His mandibles clicked together in a sound that might have been annoyance. The dragon mother spoke. Her voice was soft and rough, like she had not used it in a long time. She spoke in the common tongue, the trade language that all species learned. "Please," she said. "Any expired pie for my daughter? Anything you throw away? I will pay what I can." She held out her hand. In her palm were a few small coins, tarnished and old. Jack recognized them. They were Draconith currency, money from a dead world. Worth nothing now except as scrap metal. The Vrelian merchant stared at the coins. His mandibles clicked faster. "No handouts for scale folk," he said. His voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "You bring disease. You bring bad luck. Move along before I call station security." The dragon mother flinched. She pulled her hand back. The coins fell from her fingers and scattered on the floor. She did not pick them up. Please, she said again. My daughter has not eaten in 3 days. I'm not asking for charity. Just what you would throw away. Just what no one else wants. The merchant leaned forward. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of warning. I said, move along, scale folk. Your kind is not welcome here. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. A Catharian line behind them made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughter. Other aliens joined in. The sound filled the food court, cold and cruel. The dragon mother's shoulders curved inward. Her head dropped lower. She turned to leave, pulling her daughter with her dot, and then the little girl spoke. Mama, she said. Her voice was high and thin, and it cut through all the other sounds like a knife. Mama, I am so hungry. The laughter stopped. For a moment, no one moved. The dragon mother stood frozen, her daughter's hand in hers. The little girl looked up at her with eyes that were too big for her face, eyes that had seen too much suffering for someone so young. I know, little flame, the mother whispered. I know, Mama will find something. Mama promises. But there was no hope in her voice. There was only exhaustion and defeat and the terrible knowledge that she could not keep that promise. Jack? Harmon watched all of this from his table in the corner. His coffee sat untouched in front of him. His hands were flat on the table, and his knuckles were white. He had seen war. He had seen soldiers die screaming on alien soil. He had seen cities burn and families torn apart by bombs that fell from the sky. He had thought he had seen the worst that the universe had to offer, but this was different. This was not the violence of war. This was something colder. This was the quiet cruelty of a universe that simply did not care. This was a mother begging for garbage to feed her starving child while the galaxy looked on and laughed. Jack had spent his whole life following orders. He had been a good soldier. He had done what he was told, and he had not asked too many questions. When the war ended, he had walked away because he was tired of fighting, but sitting there in that dirty food court, watching a dragon mother hold her hungry child while aliens mocked her pain, Jack felt something wake up inside him. Something old and fierce and angry. He was not tired anymore. He stood up, his chair scraped against the floor. The sound was loud in the sudden silence. People turned to look at him. The Vrelian merchant's compound eyes focused on him. The Cathari stopped laughing. Jack walked forward. His boots were heavy on the metal floor. He had walked this way before, on battlefields and in burning cities. It was the walk of a man who had made a decision and would not be stopped. He reached the bakery counter. He stepped up beside the dragon mother. She looked at him with eyes full of fear, waiting for another blow, another insult. Jack did not look at her. He looked at the Vrelian merchant. I will take 6 meat pies, he said. His voice was calm and steady, the voice he had used to command soldiers under fire. 3 fruit pastries, 2 bottles of clean water, and whatever the lady and her daughter want. The merchant's mandibles stopped clicking. His forearms went still. Human, he said. You do not want to associate with these creatures. They are unclean. They are. I did not ask for your opinion, Jack said. I asked for food. Ring it up. The merchant did not move. Jack leaned forward. He was not a big man, but there was something in his eyes that made the merchant take a step back. It was the look of someone who had faced death many times and was no longer afraid of it. Ring it up. The merchant rang it up. Jack paid without looking at the price. It cost him nearly half of what he had left for the week. He did not care. He gathered the food and the water. He turned to the dragon mother, who was still staring at him like he had grown a second head. Come on, he said. Let us find a table. You and your little one look like you could use a proper meal. The mother did not move. Her yellow eyes searched his face, looking for the trick, the trap, the hidden cruelty. Why? She whispered. Why would you help us? Jack thought about the question. He thought about all the reasons he should not help. He was retired. He was poor. He had his own problems, but then he looked down at the little girl. She was staring at the meat pies in his hands with an expression of pure wonder, like she had never seen anything so beautiful in her entire life. Because it is the right thing to do, Jack said simply. Now come on. The food is getting cold. He walked to his table. After a moment, the dragon mother followed. Her daughter held her hand tight. Behind them, the food court was silent. No one laughed now. Jack sat down. He pushed the food across the table. The little girl looked at her mother for permission. The mother nodded, and the child grabbed a pie with both hands and bit into it like she was afraid it would disappear. Jack watched her eat. He thought about all the times he had taken food for granted. All the times he had thrown away what he did not want. He would never do that again. They sat together at the small table while the dragon child ate. She ate like someone who had forgotten what being full felt like. She ate like every bite might be her last. When she finished the first pie, she looked at the second one with such desperate hope that Jack pushed it toward her without a word. The mother did not eat. She watched her daughter with tears running down her scaled face. The tears sizzled slightly where they touched her copper skin. Jack pretended not to notice. "Eat," he said to her. "There is enough." The mother shook her head. "My daughter first. Always my daughter first." Jack understood. He had seen that look before on the faces of mothers in refugee camps across a dozen worlds. The willingness to starve so their children could survive. "Your daughter needs you strong," he said. "Eat, please." The mother hesitated. Then she took a small bite of a pastry. Her hands shook as she lifted it to her mouth. Jack looked away to give her privacy. The little girl finished her second pie. She looked up at Jack with crumbs on her snout and smoke curling from her nostrils. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was small but steady. "You are kind." Jack felt something shift in his chest. "What is your name, little one?" "Ember," the child said. "Mama calls me Ember because I was born on the day of the last fire festival. Before the sickness came." Jack nodded. "That is a good name." "I am Jack." "Jack," Ember repeated. She tried to say it the way he did, but her tongue was not made for human sounds. It came out more like Jock. She smiled, showing small sharp teeth. "I like that name." The mother wiped her eyes with the back of her clawed hand. "I am Kiraveth," she said. "We owe you a debt we can never repay." "You owe me nothing," Jack said. "Just eat." They ate in silence for a while. The food court continued around them. Other beings came and went, buying food, talking, living their lives. No one approached the table where the human and the dragon sat together. No one looked directly at them. It was as if they had become invisible. When most of the food was gone, Jack leaned back in his chair and looked at Kiraveth. "How long have you been on this station?" Kiraveth's yellow eyes grew distant. 3 months. "Before that, we were on a cargo ship. Before that, a mining colony. Before that—" She shrugged, a very human gesture that looked strange on her dragon body. "I have lost count. We have been wandering for 3 years. Since the plague of ashes took our world." Jack had heard of the plague. Everyone had. It had killed billions of Draconith in less than a year. Their entire civilization had collapsed. Their 17 star systems had fallen silent one by one. Now the survivors wandered the galaxy like ghosts, unwanted and unwelcome. "Why does no one help you?" Jack asked. "Surely some planet would take refugees." Kiraveth laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You do not know, do you? Your species is new to the galaxy. You do not know how things work. Tell me." Kiraveth was quiet for a moment. She looked at her daughter, who had fallen asleep against her side with a full belly for the first time in days. "When our empire fell," she said slowly, "the other species saw an opportunity. We had been powerful once. We had ruled 17 systems. We had conquered and traded and built great cities among the stars. But we had also made enemies. Many enemies." She paused. Her claws tightened on the edge of the table. When the plague came, those enemies gathered. They passed a law in the Galactic Council. They called it the Draconith Resettlement Protocol. It sounds official, yes? It sounds like help. But it was not help. It was revenge. Jack felt cold. "What does the protocol say?" "It says that we are a displaced population without sovereign rights. It means we cannot own property. We cannot seek legal employment. We cannot apply for citizenship on any world that signed the treaty. We exist in a gray space, human. We are not criminals, but we have no rights. We are not citizens, but we cannot leave. We are trapped. Jack stared at her. But that is monstrous. Yes, Karaveth agreed. It is, but it is also legal. The Galactic Council approved it. Over 8 million of my people wander the stars with nowhere to go. We cannot work, so we cannot earn money. We cannot earn money, so we cannot buy food. We cannot buy food, so we starve. And when we starve, the other species say that we are proof that the Draconith were always weak, always destined to fail. Her voice cracked. They are killing us slowly, human. And they are making it look like our own fault. Ember stirred in her sleep. She made a small sound, something between a whimper and a growl. Karaveth stroked her daughter's head gently, and the child settled. She does not remember our homeworld, Karaveth whispered. She was too young. She has never seen a Draconith city. She has never seen the fire mountains or the crystal caves. She has only known ships and stations and begging for scraps. She looked at Jack with eyes full of pain. She deserves better. All our children deserve better. Jack did not know what to say. He had fought in wars, but he had never faced something like this. An entire species condemned to slow extinction by paperwork and prejudice. Your species, Karaveth said. Earth. Did you sign the protocol? Jack thought about it. He tried to remember if he had ever heard of such a thing. I do not know. We are new. We do not have much power in the council. I do not think anyone asked us. Karaveth nodded. That is what I thought. Humans are strange to us. You are small and soft, and you live such short lives. But you are also strange in other ways. You feel things that others do not. You came to help us when no one else would. Why? Jack looked at the sleeping child. He thought about his own life. The wars he had fought. The friends he had lost. The long empty years since his service ended. I have seen a lot of bad things, he said finally. I have done some bad things too. When you spend your life fighting, you start to think that the universe is just cruelty all the way down. That kindness is weakness. That caring is stupid. He paused. He was not good at talking about feelings. He never had been. But then I saw you at that counter. I saw your daughter. And I thought, if I walk away from this, what kind of man am I? What was all that fighting for if I cannot even help a mother feed her child? Karaveth was silent for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and touched his hand with her clawed fingers. Her scales were warm, almost hot. You're a good man, Jack, she said. There are not many good men in the galaxy. I'm just tired, Jack said. Tired of being angry. Tired of not caring. Maybe I wanted to remember what it felt like to do something right. Ember woke up. She blinked her amber eyes and looked around the food court. Then she looked at Jack and smiled her small, sharp smile. Are you going to be our friend, Jock? She asked. Jack looked at the child. He looked at her mother. He thought about the millions of dragons scattered across the galaxy, starving and forgotten and alone. Yeah, he said. I think I am. He had no idea what he was going to do. He had no money, no power, no influence. He was just a retired soldier with bad knees and a small pension, but he had something else. He had connections. He had a friend who owed him a favor. A big favor. It was time to call in that debt. Jack found a quiet corner of the station where the communication terminals worked. He paid for a private channel and punched in a code he had not used in 5 years. The screen flickered. A face appeared. It was a woman in her late 40s with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She wore the uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps with captain's stripes on her shoulders. Jack Harmon, she said. Her voice was flat, but there was something like amusement in her eyes. I thought you were dead. Hello, Lisa. I need a favor. Captain Lisa Monroe had been a combat medic during the siege of Meridian 4. Jack had pulled her out of a burning dropship when the enemy broke through their lines. She had patched up his wounds 17 times over the course of the campaign. They had saved each other's lives more times than either of them could count. She owed him nothing. He owed her nothing. They were even, but she was also the only person he knew who had any power in the galactic system. A favor, Lisa repeated. You disappear for 5 years. Do not answer any of my messages, and now you need a favor. This should be good. Jack told her everything. He told her about the food court and the dragon mother and the little girl named Ember. He told her about the Draconith resettlement protocol and the 8 million refugees slowly starving across the galaxy. He told her about the laughter of the Cathari and the cruelty of the Vrelian merchant. When he finished, Lisa was quiet for a long time. I knew about the Draconith, she said finally. Everyone in the Corps knows. We do not talk about it. Earth is still a minor power, Jack. We have 6 colonies and a small fleet. We cannot challenge the Galactic Council on Refugee Policy. I am not asking you to challenge anyone, Jack said. I am asking you to look at this. He sent her the footage from his neural implant. Every soldier in the Defense Corps had one. It recorded everything they saw and heard, stored it in encrypted memory for mission review. Jack had never thought he would use this for something like this. The footage played on Lisa's screen. Jack watched her face as she saw the Dragon Mother approach the counter. As she heard the words, "Any expired pie for my daughter." As she watched the little girl say, "Mama, I am so hungry." Lisa's face did not change, but her eyes did. "Jack," she said, "this is ... I know what it is. It is a mother begging for garbage while the galaxy laughs at her. And there are millions more like her. Millions, Lisa. Children starving because of a treaty that was designed to punish an entire species for the crimes of their ancestors." Lisa closed her eyes. Jack could see her thinking, calculating, weighing the politics against the morality. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Show this to someone who can do something. The Assembly. The press, anyone, shame them. Humans are good at that." Lisa opened her eyes. "You are asking me to risk my career?" "Yes." "You are asking me to start a diplomatic incident?" "Yes." "You are asking me to pick a fight with every major power in the galaxy?" "Yes." Lisa stared at him through the screen. 5 years of silence, and this was what he came back with. Not a hello, not a how are you, but a request to turn the galactic order upside down for a species nobody cared about. "You always were a stubborn fool," she said. "That is why you like me." A small smile crossed her face. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Send me everything you have. The footage, the protocol documents, any testimony you can get. I will bring it to the Assembly, but I cannot promise anything. Earth is small, Jack. We do not have the votes to change council policy." "We do not need votes," Jack said. "We just need to make people see. Once they see, they cannot pretend anymore. You have a lot of faith in people." Jack thought about Caraveth and Ember waiting for him back in the food court. He thought about the look on Ember's face when she ate her first meal in 3 days. "Maybe I do," he said. "Is that so bad?" Lisa shook her head. "No, it is not. I will do what I can. But Jack, be careful. There are powerful species who profit from the Draconith suffering. They will not be happy if you start making noise." "I spent 22 years fighting wars for other people's causes," Jack said. "Maybe it is time I found one of my own." He ended the call. The next few weeks were the busiest of Jack's life since the war. He spent his days gathering evidence. He interviewed Draconith refugees all over the station, recording their stories on his implant. Mothers who had lost children. Children who had lost parents. Families torn apart, scattered across the galaxy like dust in the solar wind. He learned things that made him sick with anger. He learned about camps where Draconith were forced to work without pay. He learned about stations that charged them triple prices for food and water. He learned about ships that took their money for passage and then dumped them in the void. The more he learned, the angrier he got. Caraveth helped him. She knew the Draconith communities, the hidden places where her people gathered to share information and resources. She introduced him to elders who had once been senators, to scientists who had once led research teams, to soldiers who had once commanded fleets. All of them were thin. All of them were tired. All of them had given up hope. But when Jack told them what he was trying to do, something changed in their eyes. A small spark. A tiny flame of something that might have been hope. "Why are you doing this?" one elder asked him. "What do you gain?" Jack did not have a good answer. He was not sure he understood it himself. All he knew was that he could not walk away. He had tried to walk away his whole life, from the war, from his memories, from everything that hurt. And it had left him empty and alone. This was different. This felt like purpose. 3 weeks after his call with Lisa, she contacted him again. "It is done," she said. "The footage went before the assembly yesterday. It has been leaked to every major news network in human space." Jack felt his heart pound. And it is spreading. Humans are angry, Jack. They are very, very angry. I have never seen anything like it. People are demanding action. They are flooding their representatives with messages. They are organizing protests at every human embassy in the sector. Jack closed his eyes. He thought about Ember, safe in the small room he had rented for her and her mother. He thought about her smile when she learned a new word in human language. What happens now? "Now?" Lisa smiled. It was not a small smile this time. "Now we change the rules." The footage spread across human networks like fire through dry grass. Within 48 hours, every major colony had seen it. Within a week, it had reached alien information systems. Within a month, it had become the most watched video in the history of galactic communications, a dragon mother begging for expired pie, a child crying from hunger, a human veteran standing up when everyone else looked away. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Some species mocked the humans for their sentimentality. The Cathari called it emotional weakness. The Vrelian merchants said humans were too soft for the hard reality of interstellar commerce. Several senior council members dismissed the video as propaganda, designed to embarrass more established species, but ordinary citizens across the galaxy were not so easy to dismiss. On 100 worlds, beings who had walked past the hungry without stopping began to question themselves. Parents looked at their children and imagined what it would be like to have nothing to feed them. Workers remembered times when they had been desperate, when they had begged for help and found none. The Draconath were no longer faceless refugees. They were Karaveth and Ember. They were real, the United Earth. Assembly met in emergency session. Jack watched the broadcast from his small rented room on the station. Karaveth and Ember sat beside him. Ember did not understand what was happening, but she could feel the tension in the air. She held her mother's hand and watched the screen with wide eyes. The assembly chamber was packed. Representatives from every human colony filled the seats. The gallery was crowded with observers and journalists. The air hummed with electricity. A woman stood at the central podium. She was tall and calm, with silver hair and dark skin and eyes that had seen 1,000 difficult negotiations. Her name was Grace Delgado, and she was the human ambassador to the Galactic Council. "Fellow citizens of Earth," she began, "I come before you today not to discuss politics or policy or trade agreements. I come to discuss something more fundamental. I come to discuss who we are." The chamber fell silent. 3 weeks ago, a retired sergeant named Jack Harmon witnessed something in a food court on Orbital Nexus 12. He saw a mother begging for garbage to feed her starving child. He saw that mother mocked and humiliated for the crime of being born to a species that the galaxy has decided to forget. And he did something that we, as humans, should be proud of. He helped. Grace paused. Her eyes swept the chamber. But one man's kindness is not enough. There are 8 million Draconath refugees scattered across this galaxy. 8 million beings who cannot work, cannot own property, cannot find shelter, because of a treaty designed to punish them for the sins of their ancestors. They are dying slowly and quietly, and the galaxy has agreed to look away. She straightened her shoulders. I am here today to propose that we stop looking away. The murmurs began immediately. Representatives whispered to each other. Some looked worried. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Grace continued. Under Section 17 of the Earth Colonial Charter, we have what is called the Emergency Sanctuary Provision. It allows any human colony to grant temporary residency to displaced populations in humanitarian crisis. This provision has never been invoked on an interstellar scale. Today I'm asking us to invoke it. The chamber erupted. Representatives stood and shouted. Some demanded order. Others demanded answers. Grace waited until the noise died down. I know what you are thinking. We are a small power. We have 6 colonies and limited resources. We cannot possibly absorb millions of refugees. And you are right. We cannot save everyone. But we can start. We can open our doors. We can prove that someone in this galaxy still believes that compassion matters. She looked directly into the camera. Jack felt like she was looking at him. The Galactic Council has told us that we are too young, too naive, too emotional to understand how things work. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps we are naive enough to believe that a child should not starve because of a treaty signed before she was born. Perhaps we are emotional enough to feel anger when we see cruelty. Perhaps we are young enough to believe that we can do better. She smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision and would not back down. Let them call us naive. Let them call us emotional. We will call ourselves human. And we will act like it. The vote was held that night. It was not unanimous. Some colonies worried about resources. Some worried about politics. Some worried about what the other species would think, but, in the end, enough said yes. 3 human worlds opened their borders to Draconith refugees. New Providence, Harmony Station, Port Mercy. Ships were dispatched within days. Medical teams were mobilized. Schools began preparing to welcome children who had never known a stable home. The Galactic Council was furious. They sent formal protests. They threatened trade sanctions. They warned of diplomatic consequences. Some species demanded that humans be expelled from council membership entirely. Ambassador Grace Delgado stood before the council and delivered a response that was broadcast across 1,000 worlds. You are correct, she said. We are young. We are naive. We are emotional. We look at a mother begging for expired food to feed her daughter, and we feel something you have apparently forgotten how to feel. We call it compassion. And if compassion is not proper protocol, then perhaps your protocol needs to change. She paused. Humanity will take the Draconith. Not because we are powerful, not because we gain anything from it, but because it is right. And one day, when you remember what that word means, you are welcome to join us. The transmission ended. In the weeks and months that followed, over 2 million Draconith were resettled on human worlds. It was not a perfect process. There were challenges and misunderstandings and growing pains. Cultures clashed. Languages tangled. Some humans grumbled about the newcomers. Some Draconith struggled to trust their new neighbors, but slowly, something beautiful began to grow. Dragon children attended school beside human children. Dragon workers built homes and grew crops and started businesses. Dragon elders taught young humans about fire and stars and the history of their fallen empire. Human families shared their food and their homes and their holidays with neighbors who had once seemed so strange. Caraveth and Ember settled on New Providence Colony. They were given a small house with a garden and a door that locked at night. Ember started school. She made friends. She learned to read and write in human language. She grew strong and healthy, her scales shining bright copper in the sun. Jack Harmon visited them. 6 months later, he took a transport from the station to the colony. A journey of 3 days through empty space. He spent the time thinking about everything that had happened. He still could not quite believe it. He had just wanted to buy a hungry kid some pie. He had never expected any of this. The colony was green and warm, with blue skies and rolling hills that reminded him of Earth pictures he had seen as a child. He walked through streets where humans and Draconith lived side by side. He saw children playing together in parks. He saw shops with signs in both languages. He saw a future that he had never dared to imagine. Karaveth met him at the transport station. She looked different now. Her scales were bright. Her eyes were clear. She stood tall, without the hunched shoulders and bowed head he remembered. "Jack," she said. She smiled, showing teeth that no longer looked frightening to him. "Welcome home." They walked to her house together. The garden was full of strange flowers that bloomed with flame instead of color. A small fire pit in the backyard crackled and popped. It was warm and alive and nothing like the cold corridors of the station. Ember saw him from the window. She ran out the door and threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Uncle Jack! Uncle Jack! Mama made pie today, real pie, with berries from the garden." Jack knelt down and hugged her. She was heavier now, solid and strong. Her scales were smooth and warm against his hands. "Real pie, huh?" he said. "That sounds pretty good." Ember grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the house. "Come on, come on. I will show you my room. I have books now, and toys, and my own bed." Jack let himself be pulled along. He looked back at Karaveth, who was watching them with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Jack did not know what to say. He was just a tired old soldier with bad knees and a small pension. He had not done anything special. He had just refused to look away, but maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all it took to change the world. One person who refused to look away. One act of kindness in a universe of cruelty. One small flame in the darkness. Inside the house, Ember chattered happily about her school and her friends and the dragon songs her mother was teaching her. The smell of fresh pie filled the air. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Jack sat at the table and watched the little dragon girl bounce around the kitchen. He thought about all the years he had spent fighting wars and running away and trying to forget. He thought about the empty feeling he had carried for so long. It was gone now. In its place was something warm and quiet and good. For the first time since the war ended, Jack Harmon felt like he had finally come home and outside. In the garden of a small house on a human colony world, a dragon mother and her daughter began to build a new life among the stars.